All I ever want in life is to be understood. All I ever want with this episode, and truthfully, for however long I exist, is to be heard and to be listened to. And that's all I ever want out of somebody. That's all I could ever ask for out of a friend, out of a parent, out of a significant other, is just to be understood and heard out, right? I have a very strong frustration with society and how avoidants are represented, and the shame and the negativity that is pointed towards them, because avoidance, I'm talking about attachment styles here, are tend to be called cold and frozen and detached and intentional and selfish with what they do. And I'm an avoidant. I'm a fearful avoidant, anxious avoidant, which is, I think, the rarest attachment style. And it's really frustrating for me to hear that and to see that, because I think that we are extremely misunderstood and misrepresented within society. And I want to speak up for us. Maybe I'm not the spokesperson for all, but I at least want to be the spokesperson for myself. And what's really frustrating is it's extremely easy to point fingers at the avoidant, because the avoidant, like I said earlier, is cast as cold and cast as frozen, and it almost seems as if the things that we do are considered intentional by the people that we do these things to. And the last thing that and what I would assume most people do in life is to hurt somebody. Nobody wants to hurt somebody. Nobody intends, when you get into a relationship, when you get into a friendship, or whatever that relationship is with your parents, to hurt somebody. However, from a young age, you are taught, when you're an avoidant, that vulnerability and closeness can only bring harm. And it's almost the closer that you get to somebody and the more love that you have for somebody, the more you feel vulnerable and the more you are at a chance of getting hurt or getting broken or getting whatever the word could be. So we tend to self-sabotage those things. We tend to put ourselves in situations where we don't have to deal with that. Now, the worst of the worst is when you do that even with friendships. You do that even with close relationships, like with your parents. You don't even want to be close to them because then they could hurt you. You don't want to go outside of your house. Like, that is as far as you can go when it comes to the avoidant nature. But I don't want to say most of the time, I don't want to speak for everybody, but a lot of the times that usually just comes within the significant other situation, because the vulnerability aspect is so much stronger, and it really gets like deep down, because you are showing that person all of who you are, all good and bad, compared to like just a friendship. A friendship can be really deeply rooted, but it's still, it still doesn't have that same intensity that a normal relationship would consist of. But what I want to get back to is that thing that we are always the person to put the blame on. And it's really frustrating because, like I was saying, we don't do it intentionally. It is a protective mechanism. The same way that an anxious person, their protective mechanism is to want a level of closeness and to want to be loved and want to be cherished, and like a teddy bear, essentially. And it's society almost looks at the anxious side as, "Aw, that's so sweet, that's so cute." Yet that feeds in to the dynamic that the anxious avoidant has, right? So the love can get really intense for the avoidant, and then they back away, and then when you're an anxious avoidant, you're like, "Don't back away." So the interesting part about the anxious avoidant person in general is that push-pull dynamic is not only happening between you and the other person that is in the relationship, it's happening within yourself. So the avoidant part comes in, and you try to find anything to diminish the character of the other person because that makes you feel better about the possibility of them leaving. So you find whatever it is that can bother you, whatever it is that you can attach yourself to convince yourself that, yes, this is not a situation that I should be in, right? So then you start to once again detach yourself. But then when you begin to detach yourself, then the anxious person within you, the anxious version inside of you, then comes out and wants closeness. So you are in a constant battle with yourself. And then you add the other person on top of that, and you are in a push-pull with your own thoughts, and then you have the added nature of somebody else adding on to that. It is miserable. It is awful. It is frustrating. I can't even describe what it's like to live within a relationship being in my own mind. Because I can recognize that a person is the nicest, kindest, sweetest person on the face of this earth, and I will find any reason to attack their character to convince myself that this is not the person to be with. And living inside of that brain, living inside of my mind, knowing that I do that to people is extremely frustrating. And I almost don't want to get in a relationship with good people because I know the capabilities that I have, and I know that eventually I will end up hurting them by me being with them. Because I am not able to tame that anxious avoidant part of myself, that I am going to eventually hurt them. And that is a really frustrating discovery to know about myself. And it's not like it's just one battle that you're fighting. It's not anxiety that you're fighting. It's also vulnerability that you're fighting. And then the combination of that, and then you find somebody, it is maddening. And then once again, you take society who castrates you, who calls you the problem, who says that it is all of your fault and it's you that is the problem. It's you that's causing all of this hurt. It's you that's causing all of this whatever. And it feels as if you're being shunned. It feels as if you're not being listened to. It feels as if you're not being understood. And they don't understand what it's like to live in the mind of somebody that is like that. And I want to try to humanize that and just be listened to because I want to be understood. That's the only thing that I want to be within life. And growing up, I've always felt that I was different. I've always felt that I was not normal, that I didn't think normally. I didn't act normally. I was always extra. I was always this. I was always that because I wanted to be seen. I was in theater plays. I used to wear really extra things. I used to say ridiculous shit when I was younger because I knew that it would bring me attention. And it worked, sometimes in the way that I wanted it to, and I think the theater plays as well as the acting part of it really, really was a healthy way of me to do it. And that was helping me be seen physically. However, as I've gotten older, I wanted to shift my goals in life, and I still want to be seen. I still want to be understood. I still want to be looked at, but my goal is actually differently now growing up. I don't want to physically be looked at in the same way that I did when I was younger, when I used to wear tight compression Spider-Man or Piccolo shirts. Now it's I want to be seen for my thoughts. I want to be seen for my brain. I want to be understood, and I just want to be listened to, which is why I've shifted my goal in life to, excuse me, to want to be a director, because in my mind, when you're an actor, you're just being looked at physically, or you're just being seen physically. But when you're a director and you're a writer, you are writing the story and you are directing the story that you get to bring it to life. You get to build the world. You get to essentially say, this is my vision for the product, and I want people to see the way that I think in action by telling a story rather than being the one that's looked at, because I think that that is, in my opinion, more valuable. For me personally, some people, the physical being seen is, more whatever it is. But yeah, I've switched. So, which is another reason why I like doing these video diaries, is because I like to be seen. I want to show my vulnerability on the internet because it makes me feel better about myself. Because if I'm able to put things on the internet, I don't know. I don't even have an explanation for it. I guess I just like doing it. So, yeah. And it's just like, it's frustrating. Like, living in the mind. I don't know. And it's weird because then the anxious part of me comes out right now as I'm filming this. And I start thinking, why do you keep talking about your emotions? Why do you keep talking about this? Why don't you talk about, I don't even think like, would you talk about the good things? But it's just like, then the anxious part comes in, and it's, nothing you can do is right. And that's not all the time, but you have to catch yourself in it. And it's just so difficult because there's two battles that you're facing when you're an anxious avoidant. And it's because you're the problem. We were made to feel like we were the problem. And now we're still not being seen. And I want to change that. So I don't know how. I don't know how to shift that mindset. I don't know how to shift that whatever to people start to seeing you as intentional or not intentional. I don't know. I hope somebody gets something out of this and somebody starts to understand, and you don't have to forgive, but just, understand. Yeah. I'm really not sure what else to say. So thank you guys very much. Please do something good for yourself. Do your laundry if you haven't done it in a while. Maybe clean your sheets. Kind of speaking out of my my own personal whatever the word is, but yeah, please. And I think, treat yourself to do something nice. I don't know. If you've done, good things, get yourself a nice pizza. But seriously, don't get like a bad pizza. Don't get a frozen pizza. If you're going to get a pizza, go all out, man. Get like a mom and pop shop pizza because they taste so much better. So I love you very much and have a good day. Bye-bye. I have a couple closing thoughts. I think at the end of the day, both attachment styles truthfully want the same thing. They just don't know how to achieve it. And I think what we need to do as people and what we need to do as a society is truly listen to each other and communicate with each other about what we need in order to be comfortable with each other within a relationship. And that starts with the relationship with yourself. That means if you have an insecurity that is not defeatable, where there is nothing that the person can say to make you feel better about it, it is your responsibility to defeat that. And if you need to be single in order to do that, that is not selfish. That is the best thing that you can do as a human being. And I really want people to understand that. That is self-improvement. I do not believe that that is selfish. Yeah, I want people to understand that. So please show love to everybody and understand that everybody just wants to be understood, everybody just wants to be loved, and everybody wants to be held like a teddy bear. So, thank you. Bye-bye.